This skill development activity focuses on translating the data that's in GIS, the world of information that we're able to download, integrate into a GIS map, and turning that into base map materials that are ready to support design work. So as you see here on the screen today, we're starting to see things like property lines and contours. There's even a LiDAR-based hillshade, which basically helps us to see the topography of the particular site, all for the Delphi Memorial Site Project. This is a good example site project, and it's one that extends well beyond this semester where we're working on the design of this space, because it's typical of landscape architecture. The site's about 14 acres in size, which means that we will need to develop base materials at multiple different scales. So how do we develop a GIS support system behind this so that we can always have access to the most accurate information available, and we can jump in and out of scale based on what we need and develop base map materials quickly that will support our designs. So moving on from this, what I'd like you to do is go ahead and join with me by go ahead and Google Indiana Map. So the Indiana Map, as we've talked about before, is an online web viewer of all kinds of available GIS information that is curated into this atlas by various university partners across the state of Indiana. There's a lot of other working professionals that help support this map and support this information, from county planning offices to private entities across the state. So once you've gotten here, remember, we can go down and we can click on View the Map. And once we view the map, you're going to see that the map of Indiana comes up, right? And if you want to go look and see what information's over there, you go to the layer gallery. But for right now, we just want to use this as a wayfinding tool. I need you to find the community of Delphi, Indiana. DELPHI, right? And so once I do that, click on OK, it's going to ask me for a location, and I can zoom in. The particular site that we're looking for here today happens to be a park that's been proposed just east of the city of Delphi. Here's the Wabash River, here's the primary community, here's Indiana 25. And Indiana 25 has just undergone a major, almost 2-decade-long rebuilding process to go from a small 2-lane highway to a modern 4-lane limited access highway. It's not quite an interstate, but it very much feels like an interstate at this point in time. Indiana 25 has a giant S-curve as you come out of the city of Delphi, and so you'll see it here that there's a big, looping S. And our particular project area happens to be where Indiana 218 intersects Indiana 25. The reconfiguration of the highway means that this connection doesn't actually exist exactly like this, but I'll go ahead and zoom in here just real quick. And just to help us really identify what we're looking at, I can go ahead and click on here and click for base maps, and you're going to see that here's some 2011 imagery. And for right now, I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. The landmarks that we're looking for, again, if I zoom out just a little bit, is the city of Delphi, the S-curve. As I come in here, you're going to see this large industrial agricultural processing facility. There's also, this is a railroad corridor that comes through here that is very active with industrial traffic. And this Indiana 218, the old section here, which in a minute I'll show you doesn't exist any longer, is actually the southern boundary of our site. However, here's old Indiana 25, and the new highway cuts right through the middle of this field, right? And so some of the geography has changed since 2011. The northern end of our site is actually right up in here in this kind of wetland. There's a stream channel that comes through here that drains and then goes over here. And so certainly we've now found the right location. And we could go start adding lots of information at this point in time to better understand the landscape. That's all possible here in Indiana Map. But if we want to create high quality base map materials, we actually have to go and use the desktop version of GIS. So go to the Blackboard site and download the data packet that I've provided here for the skill development activity. Inside of that, you're going to find a folder labeled base data, right? And with base data, I want you to add the county boundary, the county, the highways that are inside Carroll County, and then also this parcels layer. And what each one of these is that the two should be obvious. It's the boundary of the county itself, it's the highways, And then this boundary layer becomes really important. Because if you remember, I said find the city of Delphi right here, find the S-curve, find Indiana 218, and then zoom in. Once I've zoomed in here, what you're going to see is that old Indiana 218 came directly across and intersected there, southern boundary of our site. The new connection means that it turned and now meets the 4-lane highway at a 90-degree angle, so it's perpendicular. And so our site happens to be this particular piece of property, and using the identify tool, you should always go tell it which layer you want to grab information from. Our particular site, it has an FID of 20991. All right, it's 20991. And so we actually are going to need that site boundary as part of this process. And so what I would like you to do is that I would like you to use the same selection tools we used last week. Select by attributes, and then you're going to tell it that you want the parcels layer, and then you're going to want FID equals, and let me double check that again, my FID equals 20991. I should be able to go ahead and just type that in, 20991. And once I hit apply, you'll see that a selection has come up. Much like we did last week, what I want to go ahead and do is create a layer from this. And so I'm going to go ahead and go to selection, create a layer from selected feature. I can now go ahead and clear my selected features. I'm going to go ahead and save this layer. So I'm going to export it out so I don't lose. This is just a temporary layer. Remember, it's a working layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into that base data folder. Actually, I take that back. I'm going to go ahead and add a folder, and I'm going to say that this folder is for well, I already have a base data folder, so let's go ahead and call this the Memorial Park layer, and I'm going to label this out as Memorial Park parcel. Once I hit OK on that, it's going to add it to the site. I can remove the temporary one, and now I have my site boundary, which I'm going to do the same thing that I did, except I want a red. I already have red. Make it so I can see it. All right. Because the last thing that I'm going to do to end this video is that it's great. I showed you how to find this site, but if you're still looking for those landmarks, how do we go about doing that? How do I really look at, and identify what's going on this site? Well, one thing you can always do, and you'll notice I'm going to go up to the Add Data button, and I'm not going to click on the button itself, but rather the little down arrow here next to it. I'm going to go Add Base Map. I'm going to tell it I want some imagery. And what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and load in an aerial photograph of our site. Real quick, I'm going to turn this off and zoom in. And what you're going to see is that this is better than the aerial photograph we saw in the Indiana map. So it's more recent than 2011. I think it was actually taken in about 2014. But what you'll see is you'll see the construction phase of that highway, right? So this is when they're building the 4-lane divider. But now you actually see that these parcel boundaries, that is the highway itself. Our particular site is here, highlighted in purple. And you'll see that we're going to have to get access up to 218 for the site as well. And so there's lots of things to think about. But for right now, I just want you to get to this stopping point. You should have all of your layers from your base data folder. You should have created a shapefile of the park parcel itself, and you should have added an aerial photograph. And if you've gotten that far, then you should be able to go ahead and move on to the next step.